It's time for the 14th film in my 31 Horrors of Mike, and this time I'm talking about the 2001 film Roadkill. Now, you may also know this film as Joyride. In some other places it was also called Never Play with Strangers, which is my personal favourite title, and Never Talk to Strangers in other places as well, and Roadkillers as well, I think it was called in Italy. So it's a film with many names. It's a film that's not really well known, but it's one that I think really deserves to be re-evaluated. It was actually reviewed quite well at the time, but it's one that seems to have been forgotten along the way, and it's just a film that always stayed with me. As soon as it came out on DVD, I bought it because I really appreciated what this film was. It stars Paul Walker, Steve Zahn, and Leelee Sobieski, who, Paul Walker and Steve Zahn's characters. It's about how Paul Walker is this college student, and there's this sort of childhood sweetheart he has across the country who he's kind of in love with, and nothing's really happened between them, but he's agreed to go and pick her up and drive her across the country to where she needs to be. And so he's, trying to be the charming knight in shining armour, but at the same time he also meets his brother, played by Steve Zahn, who is kind of he's his older brother. He's a little bit manic, he's a bit of a goofball, he's quite funny, but he's really on the wrong side of the tracks because he ends up in jail quite a lot and seems to get involved in things that he shouldn't really be getting involved in. But Steve Zahn's character decides that he's going to accompany Paul Walker across the country to meet this girl, and then they'll escort her to where she needs to be. There's also supposed to be another girl at some point that's going to meet up with them. And what they do is they hire like this old car. It's the best they can afford, but this old car has a CB radio in it, the sort of radios that truckers use to communicate with one another, to tell each other about problems on the road, traffic, things like that. But also a lot of people would just chat because they're long distance driving, especially in America. I mean, in Britain you get it, but you can drive the length of Britain probably in 24 hours, but America, it's a huge country, so I think these CB radios were used by a lot of people to communicate and just to make the drives less lonesome in a lot of ways. So the two brothers head out. They're driving across excuse me, still got this cough. They're driving across America. They're driving across the sort of deserted highways, which just seem to stretch forever across the American states. And at one point they start talking to people on the CB radio, and they meet this character who calls himself Rusty Nail. Now, Steve Zahn's character pretends to be a girl talking to him just for a bit of banter, and what happens is that Rusty Nail seems to get kind of attracted to the girl who they call themselves Candy Cane, like it's a sort of their handle on the CB radio, and his name's Rusty Nail. So they kind of talk to him and sort of have a bit of a laugh with him in terms of making him think there's this girl. And then they go to stay at this motel. And at this motel, when they're booking in, they see this guy who is staying there for the night, who's racist and really just an outright arse towards the clerk who's working there. So they decide to... Steve Zahn's character's sitting in the car at one point waiting to get the room ready, and Rusty Nail comes on the radio again asking if Candy Cane is nearby. So the two brothers end up talking in this sort of womanly voice again, pretending to be this girl, and they think, well, won't it be funny, this guy's an arse that's in this room. What we'll do is we'll tell Rusty Nail that to meet us at this room, bring some champagne and all that sort of stuff. So Rusty Nail thinks he's going to get lucky. So they do this, and it is a cruel joke. It's a cruel joke to play. They're not really thinking about it that way. They're thinking about, oh good, it'll be embarrassing for that guy that's a bit of an arse in that room. But they're not really thinking about Rusty Nail, whoever this guy is, that he might be quite sort of heartbroken, maybe quite lonely. And they're telling him that there's this girl that wants to meet up with him after talking to him. So they stay in the room next door, and what happens is that they hear someone appear at the room. They hear a few strange noises, and the next day it turns out that the man that was in that room has been horribly maimed, And the rest of the film is really about how this Rusty Nail character pursues these two men across America, across the back roads of America. They also meet the Lily Sabowski character, who is with them while they're being chased, and that's really what it is. It's a sort of cat and mouse tale. Cat and mouse tale. It's a cat and mouse story, really, where Rusty Nail is trying to find out who Candy Cane is and starts playing with them. When he realises that they played a prank on him, he starts playing these pranks, although his pranks tend to involve killing people. So that's really the story. Don't want to ruin any more of it for you, because I think it's a really great thriller. It's actually very sort of it reminds me of Hitchcock in a lot of ways. This film, there's so much tension in it. Some great scenes that are paced perfectly, where you're wondering what's going to happen. Some great twists and turns. Performances are all fantastic. And if you're going to judge this film against another, I think that the best way you can do that is to compare it to Steven Spielberg's Duel, because I think the ghost of Duel really is cast over this film. Duel was a film made in the 1970s, before Jaws, and it's essentially about a man who's pursued across the back roads of America by an unseen driver in this old beat up truck, and it's reminiscent of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure they must have taken that idea and thought, well, what happens if we have the character coming out and doing horrible things from the truck rather than the truck being the creature itself. So it's got kind of some slasher elements. It's really a taut thriller. That's what it is. It's got some very funny moments in it because the chemistry between all the actors is great. I'm a big fan of Steve Zahn. I don't think he's been given a fair crack of the whip at times. I think I first saw him in That Thing You Do, which I think is a smashing little film, and he was also in Friends and things like that. But I think he's a really great actor, and I think they all acquit themselves admirably in this film. Ted Levine, who is famous for playing Buffalo Bill, voices Rusty Nail. Buffalo Bill was in Silence of the Lambs, so it's got that sort of connection to it. And there's just some great ideas in the film. It's a great thriller. Some great set pieces, some great action moments as well. Just the whole thing's really set up well, and they even have a little interplay between the three characters about which of the brothers is going to get with the girl and that sort of thing. So it's a thoroughly enjoyable film, and I would definitely recommend it. And also watch Duel as well, the Steven Spielberg film, because it's a great little movie as well. I think the only thing I would say is that people know this as Roadkill or Joyride, and I don't think the name really implies what the film's about. Roadkill sounds a bit like a sort of torture porn sort of film. Joyride I don't think really infers what the film's about. That's why I like the title Never Play With Strangers, because that's the whole thing, is they play the prank on this guy, and then this guy plays a prank back on them, and his prank is rather horrific. There's also a sort of procedural detective sort of feel to the film in ways as well, where they're trying to figure out who this guy is, what does he want, and it's played perfectly in my mind. So that's Roadkill. Go and check that film out. Thoroughly recommend it. It was an early film which involved J.J. Abrams as well. He co-wrote the film, so there is a sort of seal of quality on this movie. It's one that I think a lot of horror film fans will really enjoy. So I'll be back shortly with another review. Take care.